Welcome to the Culture Docent with Dr. Carr, where real stories spark real change. Together, we'll break down culture, leadership, and inclusion and rebuild them into something transformative. This is where conversations become movements. This is the Culture Docent.
So if you thought that first half was extremely powerful, you will find the second half just as deep. Definitely just as packed with these key takeaways and these perspectives. And so before we dive into part 2, don't forget to visit 𝐬𝐚𝐤𝐡𝐞1003.com and check out the 𝐬𝐚𝐤𝐡1003 store, where we've curated some of our favorite picks just for you.
A very long time. And so if you think about where I am centered, you think about the adjacency to government contracting, again, I want people to really understand the nuances of what is happening in the market, and it is a policy choice. And I'll be quiet, a very long way of stating, but I think it's very important to kind of really understand the underlyings that are really happening.
Yeah, providing that context. And I mean, you said a lot, which I think really resonates, definitely for me, and obviously I assume for other people that have either been laid off or, might be scared walking in every day that they're about to be laid off, or have also, of course, just made those different career pivots. I know that I have, because we started off working in the same place and pivoted to other things. And, that career pivot for me was really pivotal because
it was.
I ended up leaving around the first administration. So and that was, again, because I saw, there was, I had my good government job, right? I was like, I felt like, I had reached where I was supposed to reach. And it was also with an organization that I've been wanting to work for. It took me 3 years to get to that organization. So, to make that decision to say, like, actually, I'm going to walk away. I had many conversations with my mentor circle and, all of that to say, like, okay, I am going to leave. And it was scary, right? And I really had to think about, like, is this what I want to do? And ultimately I thought at the time, like, if that's what I really want, this institution is always going to be here. I can always come back. That's a different conversation for a different day. But that's what I felt, during that time. And it does take a lot of courage to pivot. And I didn't even have all of these, this additional constructs around me that came with the, this technology and things like that.
I was going to say that.
I didn't have that, and maybe my outlook would have been different, or maybe I would have pivoted differently. Who knows? And also just, this idea of, to your point, like, I think a lot of this resonates because this is a lot of much of what you shared is a lot of what I heard in my findings for my defense. And so y'all can read that. I'll give y'all the link if you want to read. You want to read my
at least skim it. You might find some good nuggets.
Yes, if you jump to chapter 5, you'll see some recommendations and things that I've been saying, but especially around that digital divide, right? And so the digital divide is exactly what you were describing, where we as Black people specifically continue to be divided in that we don't have the access to emerging technology, right? Like, we don't always have consistent internet because of where we live, that be in a rural area or in low poverty areas, right? And so and also not being able to, because if you don't have access, it's really hard for you to get the skills that you need to be able to navigate and understand this technology in a way that your peers at work might, depending, honestly, it spreads across different
it does.
We're not just talking to the corporate people, we are talking to all the people, right? So that digital divide impacts all of us in different ways. And so a lot of what we're seeing is that AI could be, a way to, as opposed to widen, it's supposed to hopefully decrease that divide. But to our point, and what we're talking about here is around, that policy and the ethics, actually using it. And are we in the rooms, right? And a lot of organizations don't tap into employee sentiment when they are trying to understand AI readiness. So I have too. But it is, understanding what employee sentiment looks like like engaging AI readiness. And part of that is that transparency and being clear about, where are they seeing the organization going when it comes to, AI? How are they using it? How are they impacting the communities in which the organization may sit? And,
Yes.
whether that comes to actually the actual centers, data centers, but
Right.
then we're also talking about just like the communities, right? Like, how are you engaging with your community? Are you providing classes? Are you providing courses?
Right.
Being clear with your employees around how this AI is impacting them and the communities, again, in which they serve. And so, you know, for me, and my question to you, and like thinking about that and having that kind of context, and what do you really say to, those individuals who may be reticent to use or continuing to use, AI when they have concerns about how it may be harming communities of color? Well, not maybe, how it is, right?
It
Because
is.
we
Right.
know that's a fact, right? Like, these
Right.
are
Right.
candid
Right. Right.
conversations, y'all. That is a fact. We
Yes.
know it. But
Yep.
that it may, or in a lot of instances that lacks accuracy, that it may impede on,
Yes.
an individual's privacy. So like, what are you saying? I know you're an advocate. So what are you saying to those people who may be reticent to use it for those reasons?
Yeah. Like for me, I personally am generally a glass half full person and like really try to see the good, but I'm also not everything is rosy. So I'm a realist as well. And so this hesitation around weakness, I think it's important also to reframe that it's not necessarily a weakness, it's wisdom, because it's important to understand how the sausage is made versus like, I'm not touching it with a 10-foot pole. They're putting something inside of my head. I don't know what's happening. That ain't serving our community people. Okay. Like, not happening. Where we can where we see the insight and wisdom and using some of our very ancestral instincts is really understanding where we can leverage it and also understanding what your own boundaries are. Because I believe that we do our actual communities a disservice when we say we're not going to go play in the sand on something that is really transforming the world. And that is also how we continue to get left behind, like beyond the real digital divide of like, broadband issues, access to not just the internet, to an actual computer, an actual tablet, a phone, an actual smartphone. There is also the reality again that because of skepticism, there's a fine line between healthy skepticism and actually
a conspiracy theory.
There we go. I was about to say dark. Yes, that's spot on. And my belief is also someone who provides training workshops to educators and those who lead various like school administration, school districts. Is my ultimate belief is not every child has Wi-Fi, but every child deserves AI literacy. And the AI literacy, we have got to start teaching our kids online safety very early and often. And so the only way that we can actually do that is we the parents, we the community, we the rich aunties, we the rich uncles, we the people that have been blessed to get an education, one, because we know most of us are either first gen, second gen, or third gen at best. And if you're beyond that, that is such a privilege, honestly. And it is so important that we understand that we may have the access now in our day to day, but know that the very people who we probably like, not probably, who the people we love, we may be thinking that they're getting something that they're actually not getting on a day to day basis, especially our youth. And I'm talking about this specifically as someone who has come from the world, like we know what dark things can happen with technology. And when kids do get access, the very predatory things that can happen. So beyond the digital divide, then we get into like predatory issues, right? And so what I'm saying is people that are worried, like there's balance that with healthy skepticism. If you are a mother, if you are a father, if you are someone who has taken in kids that you treat like your own or your nieces and nephews, it is so important to be having conversations around what is digital online safety first. Because I was recently part of another guest show, and I specifically talked about parents, get your heads out of the sand. Because I know there are people that are like, I'm not looking at it. I'm not touching it. I'm not thinking about it. This is not for me. I heard all about the bias, blah, 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 blah. Well, let me bring you some hard truths. We know when we do not have the conversations with our kids, what do? Because curiosity kills the cat. They will then be for real having these very curious conversations with their friends. And so their friends may be right or wrong, but they're still having it. So you think they may not be having it because you have likely cut them off, or maybe you just didn't proactively have the conversation. And what we do know is the mind is a beautiful thing, and therefore the mind wants answers to the questions that it is thinking about. And when you don't have I call it the real open door policy at home, you start to cut your kids off, or your nieces and nephews, whoever that, you have this comfort level with. And then they're then getting this information from God knows who. And for me as a mother, I want my child to be comfortable enough to come to me. But more than that, I want to be open enough where my child feels like I am the safest thing since some good old safe, good Wonder Bread in the South, people. Like, I love personally potato bread now. But the point is, really, this worriness, like, and the weariness around it, great. But we have to be educated so we can have conversations, because my little one talks about having roadblocks every day, not getting it, not having it. Nope. And why? Because I actually understand it. And I'm not judging anyone that's out there, but there were like just some real implications around what happens inside of like chat groups and stuff. And I'm just like, nope, not having it. So again, you could put boundaries around these things, but it's also important to be having the conversation of why. We're no longer in that age of you just do as I say and don't ask no questions. We know where they got us. Right. And so getting back, also, this is all intertwined in the workplace, because if you got a kid that is in the space of like doing interesting things online, that will feed into your work life. So it is really important to talk about the weariness around it, but also understanding your weariness and the reluctance to want to engage, and how that can actually produce more harm than good to your own family and to your own doings. And we know that this technology is here. So either get with it or get lost. It goes back to what I just said about being an asset. Short of you being a unicorn, you're going to have to get with this technology in a way. And I'm not saying you need to use it every day, because we also understand that there is also an environmental concern, a real one. As someone who grew up born and raised in Memphis, I just actually had an article published around this whole thing around the algorithms, and beyond the algorithms, the impact of AI on humans. And that is a real thing. However, there are times where AI can really make your life simpler. Parents, I'll give you a real example of why not to be so worried. You're like, what am I going to do for the summer break with my kid? I know summer's like beyond us now, but fall break or any mini breaks where you're like, okay, this kid is at home with me today. What are we going to be doing? Because I got to work. You could literally go into a generative AI system and create me a weekly or a week's long program for my whatever age child. Don't put the child's name. I'm big on operational security, but child's name. Don't put that stuff in there, but like a roundabout age, things that they may be of interest to them already. And how can you then create a prompt to say, do things focused around this? How cool is that? Because we don't have a lot of time in this country. Family swear family is first, but it's not. And so this is a way to, I think, if you are very weary about the systems, that you could slowly introduce your own self into it. And then this will be like that basic understanding of like, is it giving me things that I expected to give me as a response? And if it's not, you can actually tell it that it is not giving you the right information. I think I go off on my BFF like every day. That's my AI people. And this is a way for you to be able to really bring into that. And the last thing I'll close on my very long answer is Black women in particular, it is important to say we do not have the luxury of blind trust. We know that blind trust, unfortunately, disproportionately harms us, and is actually one of the very reasons why I got involved. And more so in my previous job role, once I pivoted from government, I was very much immersed in it, working very closely with product and engineering teams, and really understanding not only how the sausage is made, but being able to create guardrails that also work to mitigate a lot of the online harm and quite frankly, some of the offline harm that we've also seen with technology as well. So
yeah. So I think, again, you said a lot that I'm like, yes, like touching on certain things. And I would absolutely say, if you are still hesitant or reticent, right? Like, make sure that to Eric's point, make sure that they are for the right reasons. Make sure that it's not
yeah.
because you don't know. You need to educate yourself. And if you decide
Mm-hmm.
still after that, right, like that's not something that I'm interested in or something that I want for me, my family, my colleagues, my
Right.
teams, right? That's completely fine. Like
That's fine
you
too.
don't
Yeah.
have to. And be very willing to push back if you do have organizations or you do have teams that are saying like we have to,
Use
we
this.
have to use this. You have to use it. I did have an instance where that happened to me where I was just like, yeah, I don't use it. So we're gonna have to find a different way to figure out how we're going to come with the solution, how to complete this project, but that's not something I do. And all you organizational
Yeah.
leaders out there, going back to my I'm going to underscore the importance of employee sentiment here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Understanding where your
Where's
employees
they come?
stand, where they personally feel about this, because you could be creating an environment where they are no longer comfortable, right? Again, harking
Yes.
back to our last episode,
Yeah.
trust that breaks down trust if you are not incorporating their sentiment, if you're not understanding their own perceptions around, if you're not educating again on how you intend to use AI,
I
how you're
agree.
leveraging,
Versus just
right?
implementing it, right? Like, I
Right.
don't think that companies should be blindly just implementing it. I think that it should be a conversation whether the bottom line is we're going to do it anyway. That is fine. But how you build rapport and trust is by having a conversation. So maybe that you still implement it, but based on someone's real lived experience as to why they feel a certain way about it, then that's something that even if you're not the final decision maker, that you can take back to your own leadership too. And I know I did not fully expand on that in my initial answer. I know I talked about like it's going to be the way of the future, and the reality is it is. But I think that also there is a way for there to be a healthy balance, even if you are someone that's skeptical, and particularly if you're still young in your career. If you're on the tail end about to, be close to retirement, then we're having a different conversation because you do what you will with it, right? But for those who are new, fresh college graduates, all these things, I know it is really putting you on not only a tailspin, but on your head spin around how do I now make a career out of the traditional jobs that historically that have been for young college grads, right? And there are a lot of young people I know, particularly underrepresented communities that are like, I want no parts of AI. On the flip side, the ones who do want at least some part of it are creating businesses that are honestly life changing. And I think that there are ways to do it. If we already understand the biases that it brings, one thing that I actually harp on a lot is that a lot of the models are very Eurocentric, right? And we know one, the reason why it's not necessarily, people like, oh, that's what they intend to do anyway. No, what's happening is just like us. If I have a friend that knows a friend, I bring a friend into the conversation to community, and they go get another friend. And if we're all part of the same echo chamber, we're going to get the same type of people. And when you look around, sometimes you're not even fully realizing that, oh, these are the people that look like me. And we made these decisions because, we thought about like what it could be like, for the person on the other end. But unless you are a part of the culture competency, and really understand what some of that nuance is, you still miss the mark. And I feel like no greater failure of a company and losing trust and real quick is to produce a product that was not fully vetted, that caused this irreparable harm, one. Two, maybe you address it, maybe you don't. But this could have all been prevented by literally having a strategy that ensures that we as a company are doing right by humanity first. And that includes all. If you have an intention for your product, it is very important to have that strategy around it, because when you build from a place of humanity and all of the people actually are more likely to want to use your product because of your transparency, right? And how you have centered it, including creating guardrails to protect their information, protect how they use it, being on a platform. So you see how I can flip that really quick to, this may get some people to open up more if you're actually doing it the right way on the front end. So that is, I'm going to acknowledge and say that also that is a lot of where our skepticism lies, is because we know that the data shows these models being very Eurocentric as well. And that's where some of our real, not only skepticism, our real, what do you call it? Not even reluctance, that fear, that's what it is. The fear of using the technology is very real.
Yeah. And I want to make sure that we address also for people that may not be, again, you may not be familiar with all of the ins and outs of AI, right? Like you can educate yourself, but also when we're talking about people that are, younger, whether it's kids or they feel like kids to me, college students, being able to, not to diminish, right? And not diminutive,
sure.
just I feel so removed from that space, but recognizing that when for many of us, I would say the education that we received was very different, and there was there's different curriculum, there's different focus on skill sets, and so you may have had exercises where you did a lot of critical thinking, whether you realized it or not, right? People badmouth cursive all the time, and it's such a weird thing, but cursive really does help you refine certain skills. And so you need that, right? But like a lot of schools are not teaching it to the same degree as many of us have learned it. And so thinking about not just that particular lesson, but education changes over time. There's nothing wrong with that. It evolves. We figure out different ways of, I would say like in a lot of ways it's actually better because we do recognize different learning styles and being able to accommodate and figure out different lessons plans. And that is running the gamut from small children to adults, right? But with that being said, there's certain things that we may have learned, certain skill sets that I don't want people to feel as though AI is a replacement for that.
Right.
And that, if you are, for instance, a college student, like I had the privilege of doing a resume workshop recently where I came in and I was helping, this great set of students be able to talk about like what makes a good resume, right? Like how to refine it. And I did ask them, I asked them all to raise their hands if they use Chat GPT specifically. And I was like, don't lie, nobody, just tell me if you do. And the entire room raised their hand. And I'm like, hey, like, while I don't use it, I recognize that this is a tool that other people are using. And let me tell you that you need to use it in a certain way because you need to fact check it. You need to go behind it. You need to, it's not a human, right? It lacks nuance.
No,
right? It is generative. It's not creating new content. It's scraping the internet for different things and again, we can go through all the ways that, AI actually works, but the,
Right.
the underlining point is that, if you are a student, you're just learning, there's a reason why there are other people that are genuinely pushing back on its use is
Yep.
because you don't have certain skill sets to be able to use this technology in a way that helps you and it's actually hindering you in some capacity, right? And so
Yes.
to
Yes.
just underscore your point around, education, don't dig your head in the sand. Don't say like I'm not going to use it because I don't understand it. Understand it, right? You need to
Right. And
understand
then
it.
make an informed
You need
decision.
to inform yourself. You need to
Hmm.
understand how other people are using it. And then also if, your students, whether you're a teacher, right? And you're actually
Hmm.
teaching students or your children or people on your team that are more junior professionals and they're coming in and they're like, I'm AI literate,
Sure.
but that literacy has to mean something. We have to have a shared definition of what literacy means. It
Yes.
doesn't mean that you can do proper prompt engineering. That's part of being able to use AI, right? Like is be able to create
Right.
the prompt, but also understanding and being able to pick apart whether that was something that you actually said, whether, it is actually reviewing to understand the correct grammar. Me as an as an English
Hello.
major, right? Like some of that stuff just isn't correct, but I have the knowledge and I've already done the degrees and have the expertise in a lot of these different capacities to know that, hey, that actually isn't contextually correct and I'm able to pick out that part. And so I
Yeah.
encourage all of you to be able
I
to,
definitely have done it.
to be able to pick that apart, right?
Yeah.
And so I just want to caution you all that like not everyone is at the
Yeah.
same level, and so depending, creating
Agreed.
those shared definitions. Okay, so we have had a lot of conversation today. We are coming to my favorite part of the conversation, which is carte blanche, and that is anything goes, right? CARRT, right? Carte blanche.
I love
But
it.
be able to, I just want, Erica, if you have any questions for me, if there's any parting thoughts that you want to share, any resources that you recommend people go
Yeah.
to, and then if you have, any upcoming speaking engagements where folks can kind of check out more of what we've talked about here.
Absolutely. Again, thank you so much for having me. For those who are like, again, still like skeptical and like understanding like how AI is changing the job market. One thing that I would say, I'm a avid like reader. Okay. Like am I crazy like now more so of an audiobook? Quite frankly, but as a kid and even I'm still now a writer. I love to write. And I'm always continuing to keep this mind open and bright. One book that is a must read for every single person out there, and particularly every single Black person or Brown person, is Unmasking AI by Dr. Joy Balowini. Phenomenal. She is an MIT graduate. She's just a phenomenal soul, and she has the algorithm justice league, and again she is one of those pioneers that are doing this work. And also must shout her out as well, as she grew up in Cordova, Tennessee, Memphis, Tennessee areas where I grew up. And so I am just always been fond of her, but she is phenomenal. So you're looking for a good read on AI, and it's going to give you some truth along with research, but it's not so researchy that it becomes boring. This is that book. The last one I would say is Weapons of Math Destruction by Dr. Cathy O'Neil. Another one that is a must read. And Cathy O'Neil is a real ally. She is doing the work, and that book will actually blow your mind as well. And then the last one I will mention to you is Race After Technology by Dr. Ruha Benjamin, who is also, I think she teaches at either Harvard or Princeton. And again, all of these books I think will open your eyes, because I do think that sometimes if you're getting all of your information like from the media or whatever leaning type of journalism that you might read, can kind of sway your mind one way or another. And these books, quite frankly, are given the data behind, bias and why, we need to be thinking about things a certain way. And then the last piece I would say is thinking about where we are going, just even in the next year. Remember to use your lived experience as a data set itself. What you know about your community and from your community and the care work you do is valid and it's real. And you can actually capitalize on that in a way that you are further teaching your own community, and being an advocate for the audits around AI is important, especially in hiring. I did not mention a lot about that, but in hiring, Dr. Carr, you mentioned and talked about the ATS models, super important, and digital health platforms. And one thing I will leave with your audience, if you are tapping into the world AI from a job market perspective, one thing that you can also ask your, GPTs or Claudes or whatever is, if you are using it for some of your AI, your resume editing, make sure that you put in to ensure that the prompt has a piece that states to ensure that it has a high ATS parse rate. And also, to make sure that you're asking it to only pull in your actual professional skills and experience from your resume and not something that it made up, because it will make you have all of the things, but it's not you. So those are, like, again, thinking about integrity, and you get out what you put into AI. And those things are super important. And where you can find me, follow me, is at 𝐓𝐡𝐞 at the Policy Goddess on Instagram.com. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. And I know Dr. Carr will be sharing some more information about me, because it can be a little more interesting to find me on LinkedIn as well. And I also, you can also find me for maternal health work, 𝐓𝐴_Shoemate.com. And if you're interested in more of what I do in the AI policy and strategy space, you can find me at www.leadinwithstrategy, and that is lead, ENWITHSTRATEGY.com. But all of that information will be listed later. And I just wanted to just say thank you so very much. And the last thing is where I'm speaking. I will be speaking coming up in September virtually for Credit Karma. And in October, I will actually be in my hometown of Memphis as one of the speakers for their inaugural Deltech 2025. So it's a Delta Regional Conference. It's going to be so amazing on technology and how we can build a digital ecosystem for the Delta region, which includes Mississippi, Arkansas, and Tennessee as well. And so, again, just want to say thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to speak with you.
Absolutely. All right. So yes, be sure to, check Erica out, connect with her further with all of the info included our description. And so thank you, Erica, for coming to chat with me today. I know that, you're busy doing all the things. And so it is always a pleasure to be able to have you, take some time to speak with me and all of the wonderful people that are listening. So we have reached the end of this episode. I want you to join us next week for insights on organizational communication and strategies on how you can feel and be heard, and ensure you're allowing your teams to be heard as well. So don't forget to leave your comments and questions. We will have a link for you, so make sure that you use that, and visit the KMOB website, where you can hear recordings from this episode and previous episodes. And again, leave those questions and comments. So I will see you on Tuesday for more empowering conversations that lead to empowered experiences. Bye. Thank
Dr.
you.
𝐂𝐤 Carr will be back next Tuesday. Don't miss it. Questions or comments? Email tcd@thelkinstitute.com. And don't forget, check out our curated store at KMOB1003.com.